Another day at the Rant Network. It is Monday, one of our three broadcasts, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, always 12 noon. And you know what? Sometimes with me, sometimes without me, because I seem to be the guy who's like MIA every day. But, I love you guys just like David does. And David's the guy with the Mickey Mouse ears, in case you don't know, and I'm wearing the ugly glasses. So, we're not here to talk about how ugly our mugs are. We're here to talk about a very simple, issue, right? That issue is all about media bias. Really, that's what it is. I mean, there's so much hatred towards the land of Israel that, the rules don't apply for this country. But any other country, no problem. King Jong-un, oh, go throw a missile. China, go blow over the bow of Taiwan. Israel gets 500 rockets and defends itself and gets massacred. In fact, they go so far as blaming them for their own stupidity. David, I know you're pretty passionate about this one, and I know people think that I don't really pay attention, but David talks so much better than I do sometimes. I just have to be so quiet. David, what do you got to say?
Okay, well, let me start by saying this. If there was ever an episode where someone was to say, "So what do you guys like to talk about?" We like to talk about the stuff that the media won't talk about and others won't talk about because it's just taboo. Today's the perfect example of what I mean. The media has shown its absolute ugliness towards the state of Israel, its racist bias, its desire to see it drown, its desire to see it be crucified. And as you post up there, Stuart, up on social media about double standards, that is exactly the problem with the media. Let me explain. Last week, Islamic Jihad, a known terrorist group, and I'm using the word terrorist group, worldwide known as terrorists, have fired, as you said, Stuart, close to 500 rockets at Israel because Israel was dealing with one of its leaders. And, the way we terrorists respond is with terror. But the media decided that anybody fighting for the so called Palestinian cause is a militant. So when it comes to Israel, they're militants. But Islamic Jihad against the American army, the British army, or any other army, let me remind you and go back and look me up, were terrorists. Issue number two. Israel was blamed for killing 6 children. Ha! Want to talk about his propaganda at its best? The Palestinians used a rocket launched by Islamic Jihad that went astray, killed 6 children, and said, "Look what Israel did. Look what Israel did." And the media goes, "Look what Israel did." And then lo and behold, the Palestinian media put it out and said, "Oops, this was one of our own." And rather than CNN, as you just posted, and others recanting their false claimhood, they continue to include statements like you just posted that said Israel is still to be blamed for this. Number three, hold on. Number three, in what world, can you please tell me, where an army will tell civilians, get out of the way? We just watched Russia blow up a mall in Ukraine. We just watched Russia destroy civilian infrastructure, homes, and you name it. They're being called on war crimes. Did Vladimir Putin once say, get out of the way? Of course not. But Israel does it. Israel drops leaflets, loudspeaker announcements, you name it, get out of the way. And Islamic Jihad and the other Palestinians are preventing them from escaping because where does Hamas and Islamic Jihad fire their rockets? From within civilian homes, apartment buildings, schools, hospitals. So Israel announces, the IDF announces, we are attacking, get out of the way. You have an hour to get out of the way. And what does the media do? Israel doesn't give enough time. Israel's
You,
not
you know,
fair.
listen, Dave, I'm going to jump in. I'm like sifting through specifically CNN because they were the ones who came out there and said Israel blew up and killed 6 kids right away. Boom, there you go. But you know what they've done now? 44 Palestinian, among them 15 were killed. There's no retraction.
None.
There's no statement that The bumbling idiots blew their own kids up in their own lunch. And what I find repulsive, is that we have so many friends that go to CNN for news, and this is the crap that they get. Like, enough. Like, when do you have the brains, the sechel, to turn them off?
Well, it's not that, Stuart, because if CNN and MSNBC and all the rest continue to promote it, it must be fact. But like I said, the media wants to treat Israel like a pariah state, like Russia and like China. We have two fantastic examples of aggression at its best. You have Russia going into an independent country, attacking it for no reason, and the world condemns Russia.
Taiwan.
China, exactly. China decides to flex its muscle by doing these military exercises and to scare the United States and the rest of the world from going into Taiwan and helping Taiwan. And there are rumors floating around that China wants to invade Taiwan. China's the aggressor. But here Israel hasn't done anything to provoke. And I know people will say, oh, Israel is an occupier, and that's enough to provoke. Folks, I would love for you to please read the right history. It viles me that press has decided to take this upon themselves to defame Israel with one more thing. This past weekend is the second most sacred day in terms of the commemoration of the destruction of the temple. Many Jews went to the Temple Mount, to the Western Wall, to pray. And alas, the media refused to call it the Western Wall. They called it the Al-Aqsa compound. How dare you fucking media bastards rewrite history? How dare you do this? Even the United Nations, as racially motivated as they are, have still decided that that area is still called the Western Wall. It belongs to the Jewish people. Fuck you all, you media people, for deciding that it is now the Al-Aqsa compound. Rewriting history. It is not the Al-Aqsa compound where they prayed. The Western Wall has been in place over 2,000 fucking years. The Al-Aqsa compound is not even half that long. Get off of it. You have no right to rewrite history. But that's what the media is doing in order to defame Israel. I call on you all to absolutely cut the cord, send a message to CNN, AFP, AP, MSNBC, BBC, The Guardian, all of these people, all of these so-called media leaders. They're wrong. How dare they? This is wrong. We do not rewrite history. We don't change it to accommodate for racial motivation. I can't understand, Stuart. Actually, I do, but I can't understand how the woke continues to say that this type of bias is acceptable. Everything else isn't. But they're allowed to be racially motivated against the Jewish state. And I will repeat it again, racially motivated against the Jewish state.
Why do you find that so shocking, Dave?
I'm not shocked.
Dave, listen, over the last year and a half, we have talked constantly about media bias. We've constantly talked rules for me, not for thee. We've constantly talked about Israel being the outlier for anything that deals with normal course of reaction. For example, if North Korea fires up a rocket, the world condemns it. If we said China fires rockets, the world's condemned. Well, Joe Biden doesn't remember what side China's on, but okay, we'll give Biden the pass for the day because he doesn't remember. Then you've got, Putin, who invades a country. A small invasion, Biden says, it's good, it'll work for me. Listen, Trudeau, where the fuck's that guy? I mean, that's another guy out there. It's okay for the U.S. to kill bin Laden, right? Great point, Aura. Thank you. It's okay. It's perfectly okay for the U.S. to go blow up bin Laden. Thank you very much, SEAL team. You're an awesome group of people. And the government that said, go kill him. You know what, Obama, you made one good decision. By the way, Biden was against it, right? But here you cannot defend a sovereign nation, the only place in the Middle East that has Western worlds. All you fucking idiots that are gay, homosexual, the LGBTQ, or Democrat, do you understand that if you go there, you're dead? It's the only place where you're safe,
Yeah,
the only
but
place where you could live a free life. Be gay, be straight, be a woman,
it
work,
doesn't
be an Arab,
matter. It
work,
doesn't
be
matter.
Chinese and work.
The world doesn't care about facts, Stuart. The media doesn't care about fact. And Ora, you were bang on. The United States has a right to defend itself. Go into a foreign country and kill a leader in from Al Qaeda.
What are you
But
talking about? They
is but
manipulate. They're
Israel
the
but
CIA. They
but
manipulate
but
governments.
right, but Israel, who has a right to defend itself. And by the way, let me remind everybody that Israel continues to be listed in the United Nations, okay, every single general meeting to find a way to vilify Israel. It is the pariah state for everybody else because you want to deflect from the realities that is on them. The United States is a racially motivated country. We hear this all the time, but yet it's Israel that is being condemned on the global stage. Israel has a right to defend itself. If someone attacks you, then how dare I not be allowed to defend himself? I love this statement. This was the best statement that some moron from the United Nations said that Israel should give the Iron Dome to the Palestinians so that they can defend themselves from Israel attacks. In what world does it make sense? Instead of saying, let's eliminate the 12 terrorist groups that are harbored in Gaza, 12, and Islamic Jihad and Hamas are only two of the 12, because there is Al Qaeda and there's a bunch of other ones. No, what we do is we vilify Israel. We tell Israel, you need to level the playing ground. You need to give the power to the Palestinians. Where is the Palestinian Authority? Somebody asked me yesterday, is there not a Palestinian government? Yes, there is. Even though they're an illegitimate state, there is a Palestinian government with a Palestinian security, with a government, with a police, with it everything. But there is no rule of law.
But hang on a second. They get billions of dollars from the world
Billions,
stage.
billions of dollars.
Why are they living like poor? If every person
Oh,
got a percentage of that money, they'd be multimillionaires. Every single person.
listen, Aura, you're bang on, and you hit it right on the head. If a terrorist attacks a Jew, they're not a terrorist. They're a militant. I said that from the very, very beginning. You're bang on, Aura. Okay. The sad part is that while terrorists continue to attack Israel, they are militants. They're on a cause. They're accepted on the world stage. I just want to understand one thing, and please, and I'd love anybody from the media to explain this to me. Tell me why the Palestinian cause is taken on the global is a global cause, but not when a Muslim kills Christians, not when Muslims kill Muslims, not when the Chinese kill Muslims, but when a Jew defends himself or herself, that makes front page news. Would you explain that to me other than it is pure anti Semitism? It is racism at its very finest, and it continues to expose why the media is an untrustworthy entity. That includes Facebook, that includes YouTube. Neither of you scrutinized or censored the false information that was spread. You helped to perpetuate this medium. You helped to perpetuate the lies and the fake news. You should be just as condemned as Associated Press and all the rest of those horrors out there.
Tell me how you really feel about them, David.
Let me give you one more last tidbit.
Yep.
There is a gentleman by the name of Yosef Haddad, an Israeli Arab. I've met him when he was a teenager. He's an extraordinary individual. And he was on BBC trying to explain to everybody from an Arab's point of view. The one thing I didn't explain today was, did anyone pay attention to rockets being fired? And it was indiscriminately fired from Islamic Jihad entities in Gaza anywhere in Israel, which included Arab villages, Jewish homes, didn't matter. Only Israel defending itself mattered. Okay?
I got to jump in, Dave. I'm going to let closing notes. Arab, yes. Ora, we know all about the TikTok videos. We know it. We see it. But one thing I just got to tell you, Dave, they're not going to change.
Hell no.
And if anyone really wants them to change, we have to change here at home before we can
Absolutely.
expect them to change anywhere else. And home isn't just the United States. It's Canada. It's even
Everywhere.
there or in
Everywhere.
Israel. Yeah, everyone's got to change. And I'll
You
be
know what,
honest
Stuart?
with you.
But we need to drive the message into the media and into our government officials that this
Listen.
is not
There are
acceptable.
more. Listen, how many Arab doctors and health workers work in the state of Israel, but how many non-Arabs work in Arab hospitals? How
Stuart,
many
I have
Jews?
posted countless times a link to the real history of the Jews and the real history of Israel. If you look it up on YouTube, it was created by two people here in Montreal.
I
It
think you should add the link.
absolutely details 1000% exactly what you just said. And I will put it up on our Facebook page yet again.
Yep.
Folks, go check it out. Miss Israel was Arab. The Surgeon General of Israel is an Arab. Supreme Court judges are Arabs. The Israel doesn't get its fair share because the media doesn't want to give it to us. And with that, we've gone way over our time. Please, if there was any episode, this is the one to share with everybody. Please. And on that note, stay safe.